16252 Swartz Canyon in Ramona. This is Ian. Going to go ahead and do an inspection here. What we're looking at is 1989 construction, and all evidence points that this roof is the original clay tile roof. A lot of people confuse this for concrete, but it is in fact clay. So I'm going to do my whole inspection from the top of the ladder around the perimeter. A little more difficult to do it that way, but these clay tiles can be brittle. There's 4 broken tiles on this roof plane and 3 or 4 broken tiles over on this roof plane. So at the bare minimum, there's obviously a repair that needs to take place. But first thing we're looking for on a roof as we walk up is the metal piece of drip edge that goes there. That's been required by building code for about the last 25 years or so. So as soon as that is missing, we know that this is most likely the original roof on this home. Clay tile roofs in Southern California last anywhere from 25 all the way up to 35 years. And so this roof being beyond 35 years, we're going to look closely at it to determine if in fact it's got any life left in it. We see these drips happening on this 2x4 called shadow board. And usually that means that water is getting underneath the tile somewhere. And these drips just happen to correlate with some of the cracked tiles we saw up here. We will get to that. I'll move the ladder around and show you what that looks like. A lot of times this shadow board is all bad when we go to re-roof a house like this because it takes the brunt of that water between the transition of tile to fascia. And so a lot of times we end up replacing all of that shadow board when we re-roof a home of this age. I'll show you some more. So the majority of the fascia looks pretty good around this house, but there is some rough spots on the shadow board. And then over here, we've got more of those drips. And some of these correlate with cracked tiles up further on the roof. There's evidence of a repair around this chimney. It actually looks like it was done 10 plus years ago, and it was done really well. The mortar looks good, and then I actually found some lead flashings around that chimney, which were very popular at times in the past. So we're always looking, the eaves are made up of fascia board, starter board, and then these rafter tails. And surprisingly, the rafter tails look really good. We're looking for staining coming down any of them. And this home is very, very well maintained. It looks like this paint is fairly fresh. But again, no drip edge anywhere back here, both on the lower sections as well as the higher sections. And then here we get to see our first flashing, and that is called a T-top, and the waterproofing around it is mortar. And that mortar was consistent with 1989, so it doesn't look like the flashings have ever been replaced for metal flashings like we use nowadays. I got my ladder set up over here and give you a first glimpse at what the underlayment looks like. So, common misconception is that the clay tile does the waterproofing, but no, the clay tile is what's going to shed 95%, 99% of the water, but then it is in fact the underlayment's responsibility underneath the tile to actually waterproof. So there's more of the mortar flashings. I'm gonna zoom in on this guy in the shade, and it's very obvious that there's no way that mortar flashing is waterproof. And then if we lift the tile, that is what the waterproofing looks like. And this is the worst spot we've looked at, but it's long gone, and zero chance, unfortunately, that that's providing any waterproofing underneath this tile. I'm gonna go ahead and extend my ladder now and check out the now we're up on the 2-story section, looking at the chimney. Pretty clear that nobody's been walking around up here because I don't see any broken tile. We definitely still have all the mortar flashings, again original with the home. And then there's some obvious evidence that this chimney has been repaired. Hard to say if it was the same time frame as the chimney on the front. Well, there's a lot of peanut shells, almost like the roofer that did the repair was eating peanuts. Kind of weird. But we see this giant gob of mastic here. That's not a great sign as far as, you know, quality of workmanship. But if we come down here slightly, we can see this newer layer of underlayment. And this shadow board was replaced. So this all got rotten because the chimney leak. And they actually just put the new underlayment over the top of the old. And so that makes me question if they replaced the rotten plywood that will be up there as well. And we can see how much newer this 2x4 looks than what we've seen around the house. And that paper runs just a couple feet out of my reach. But, and then the shadow board gets pretty rough and we see some paint peeling off of it just a little bit further down the way. So in conclusion, all of the underlayment is in very similar condition, except for two of the very isolated repairs around each of the chimneys. But the rest of the areas where we checked the underlayment, it is unfortunately beyond its life expectancy. And so I've got to recommend a full roof replacement on this home.